The following presentation will provide an overview of the rules governing the VPK program. Please be sure to read your VPK contract and familiarize yourself with the rules and statutes cited within. Florida's Voluntary Pre-Kindergarten Education Program, or VPK, is a free educational program that prepares 4-year-olds for success in kindergarten and beyond. Children must live in Florida and be 4 years old on or before September 1st of the current year to be eligible. The program helps children build a strong foundation using educational materials that fit their developmental needs. There are several VPK provider options: private child care providers, public schools, or specialized instructional service providers for children with special needs who have an individualized educational plan. Private child care providers must either be licensed, license exempt with Gold Seal status, or license exempt but maintaining membership in an approved accrediting body. The VPK instructional hours must either be 540 hours for a school year program or 300 hours for a summer program. Specialized instructional service program is based on the student allocation as opposed to the hours. For 2018 and 19, eligibility dates are as follows. The school year program must take place between August 15th, 2018 and June 30th, 2019. A summer program must start no earlier than May 1st and end before the fall session for public schools begins. Eligible children will have a birth date between September 2nd, 2013 and September 1st, 2014. If a child's date of birth falls between February 2nd, 2014 and September 1st of 2014, they may delay VPK attendance for 1 year. Your provider profile for the current year must be completed on the provider portal before you can proceed with the VPK agreement. The VPK 10, 11A, and 11B forms are now called your VPK application. Supporting documentation must be uploaded to your application, for example, your attendance policy and your teacher's credentials. The VPK application and statewide agreement must both be submitted and reviewed before your contract can be certified. VPK contracts are not transferable. A change of ownership requires a new VPK contract. Providers must notify the ELC of a change of ownership no later than 30 days prior. The new owner will only schedule the remaining instructional hours from the classes in progress. The VPK director credential requirements are as follows. A VPK director must have a DCF recognized director credential, a VPK director endorsement or exemption, an affidavit of good moral character, a background screening, and the director must be on site at least 51% of the time that the VPK program is offered. The teacher qualifications are as follows. For the school year, a VPK instructor must have a background screening, initial child care training, required training. The lead teacher must hold a current CDA or equivalent, although certain degrees may substitute. Emergent literacy, the VPK standards course, and an affidavit of good moral character. For summer instructors, they must have a background screening, the affidavit of good moral character, a teaching certificate, or a bachelor's degree or higher in specific fields. Substitutes for VPK must be pre-approved, have a background screening, must have the affidavit of good moral character, and may only be used if the credentialed instructor is absent from the premises. The substitute may be used for no more than 30% of the program hours, and it must be logged each time a substitute is used. The substitute must meet educational standards. For a school year program, the substitute instructor must have one of the following: a DCF 40-hour introductory childcare training course if the class is being offered in a childcare facility, a DCF 30-hour family childcare home training if the class is being offered in a large family childcare home, a DCF 30-hour family childcare home training if the class is offered in a family daycare home, or the local school district's requirements to be employed as a substitute teacher adopted by each school district. For a summer program, the substitute instructor must have one of the following: an associate's or higher degree of study in any field, a National Child Development Associate credential or the equivalent. For a school year program, one teacher is required for 11 children. A VPK class may not exceed 20 children. There would need to be 2 teachers, a lead and an assistant, for a class having between 12 and 20 children. For the summer program, no more than 12 children, regardless of the number of teachers. Multiple classes may be held in a single classroom provided the above ratios are maintained, and the ratios do include both VPK and non-VPK children. A provider must have a minimum of 4 VPK children enrolled to begin their VPK program. Curriculum requirements for VPK must be developmentally appropriate, designed to prepare a child for kindergarten, but providers may select or design their own VPK curriculum in most cases. The Florida Department of Education will review and approve the curricula for use by providers who are placed on probation. A VPK attendance policy must be submitted to the ELC before a contract can be executed. It must be given to each VPK parent prior to the child's enrollment, and it must require the parents to verify their child's attendance monthly. The attendance policy cannot be amended during the contract period. VPK providers get kindergarten readiness rates that show how well their programs have prepared students for kindergarten. The VPK readiness rate is based on the scores of children who attended VPK and are screened. The Florida Kindergarten Readiness Screener is aligned with the VPK education standards. Screenings are conducted within the first 30 days of kindergarten. A VPK provider whose readiness rate falls below the minimum set by the Florida Department of Education and the Office of Early Learning is a VPK provider on probation. These providers may continue to offer VPK after developing an improvement plan that is approved by the Office of Early Learning. Continued low performance may result in disqualification from offering VPK in the future. Florida law requires VPK providers to use the Florida VPK assessment as a pre- and post-assessment for each child in Florida attending a VPK program. Assessment period 1, when the assessments are to be conducted, is the first 30 calendar days. That includes weekends and non-instructional days of the program. Assessment period 2 falls in the middle of the program, typically in the month of January if the program begins at the beginning of the school year. Assessment period 3 must be conducted during the last 30 calendar days, including the weekends and non-instructional days of the program. VPK assessment scores must be submitted as follows. Assessment period 1 is to be entered and submitted in Bright Beginnings in the first 45 calendar days, including the weekends and non-instructional days of each VPK class schedule. Assessment period 3 is to be entered and submitted in Bright Beginnings no later than 15 calendar days, including weekends and non-instructional days, after the last day of each VPK class schedule. Consequences for failure to administer or submit VPK assessments are very serious. You may be prohibited from offering VPK for the next 5 years. All new and existing users must register to access the VPK Assessment Online Reporting System, also known as Bright Beginnings, each program year. New VPK providers should contact the ELC to request a provider ID. Bright Beginnings will be used to order assessment kits and enter assessment scores. Assessment kits should be ordered at least 30 days prior to the start of your program. VPK is a free program. A VPK provider may not require a fee or payment as a condition of enrollment or participation in the VPK program, such as a registration fee. A VPK provider may not require a child to enroll for, or require the payment of any fee or charge for supplemental services as a condition of admission to VPK, including wraparound care. A VPK provider may not charge a parent for any VPK day. A VPK provider may not charge a parent for any fee or reimbursement of funds lost due to the provider's noncompliance or excess absences. A VPK provider may request a parent or child to voluntarily purchase or bring personal items, such as instructional materials or supplies, soaps, sporting equipment. A VPK provider may request a parent to voluntarily pay for the cost of an off-site activity, for example, a field trip, but may not require a parent to pay for the cost of an activity. A VPK provider may require personal involvement or participation of parents in the VPK program if the provider notifies the child's parent in writing of parental involvement policies before delivery of VPK has begun. A VPK provider may not require parents to pay fees or charges in lieu of parental involvement. A VPK provider must notify the parent in writing of dress code requirements before delivery of VPK instruction has begun. A VPK provider may not embed VPK program as part of a longer day. For example, the program runs from 8 to 1 and VPK is part of this program from 9 to noon. A VPK provider may charge late pickup fees if parents are notified in writing of pickup periods and fees for late pickups. Graduation fees cannot be required as a condition of the VPK program. Any changes to the calendar, schedule, instructors, child transfers between classrooms, child terminations, temporary closures, etc., must be submitted through the provider portal for approval within 14 days of the change. If the change does not meet the state-mandated requirements, providers may not be eligible for payment during that time period, and a calendar revision may have to be made. VPK providers must demonstrate to an ELC monitor that the information submitted for class approval in writing is implemented in each classroom. Providers found to be out of compliance will be notified by the monitor. A corrective action plan will be requested to resolve any issues. VPK funds could be withheld when providers are found to be out of compliance. Families must apply for VPK on the Family Portal at familyservices.floridaearlylearning.com. The application will require proof of Florida residency and the child's age. Once the child is determined eligible for VPK, parents will receive a certificate through the Family Portal. Both the parent and provider must sign the certificate, and the provider will maintain a copy for their file and submit the confirmation number through the provider portal. The provider will not receive payment prior to the approval date on the child's VPK certificate. A parent or guardian enrolling a child after the first instructional day of the program must be informed of the total hours remaining at their selected site. If a mistake is made while completing the admission by provider school section 3 on the enrollment certificate, provider is to cross out the error and initial after writing the correct information. Please do not use whiteout as it invalidates the document and parent will need to produce a duplicate certificate. The provider must enroll the VPK student on the provider portal on or before the first date of attendance. Provider termination of a child must be done on the provider portal within 14 days, and the reason for the termination must be provided. The last day of service must be accurately entered upon termination. The VPK payment rate is as follows. Providers will be paid $2,489.40 per VPK child for a school year program in 2018-19. Summer providers will be paid $2,127.08 per child for the summer of 2019. Providers may request advance payment on their provider profile. VPK provider records must be kept confidential, must be maintained for 5 years, and must be submitted to the ELC if they close or no longer offer the VPK program. The VPK program requires 3 types of tracking attendance. Daily records of a child attendance in the VPK program is a requirement and can be accomplished by using either a daily sign-in or sign-out form, an electronic parent or guardian sign-in and out report, or the teacher's roster. Monthly parent verification of a child attendance to the VPK program for the prior month is a requirement and can be accomplished with either the short form or the long form. A monthly attendance roster must be completed in the provider portal. This is prepared using the statewide information system and lists each child enrolled in the VPK program. If the daily record of a child's attendance is tracked using a teacher's roster or an electronic sign-in sign-out record where someone else besides the parent or guardian signs the child in or out, the provider must use the Child Attendance and Parental Choice Certificate long form to certify the child's participation for the prior month. Sections 1 to 7 are to be completed by the provider prior to submitting it for the parent or guardian signature. The parent or guardian is to complete sections 8 through 10. If the daily record of a VPK child attendance is tracked using a regular sign-in sign-out form or the electronic parent or guardian sign-in sign-out report, the provider must use the Child Attendance and Parental Choice Certificate short form to certify the child's participation for the prior month. Sections 1 to 5 are to be completed by the provider prior to submitting it for the parent or guardian signature, and the parent is to complete sections 6 through 8. Long forms must be signed by the parent, guardian, or person authorized on or after the end of each month. Short forms must be signed by the parent, guardian, or person authorized on or after the end of each month. VPK providers have the first 3 business days of the month to submit their attendance for reimbursement. Absence backup documentation is not required for VPK. Attendance sheets submitted for reimbursement must reflect the information contained in the daily attendance tracking sheet. VPK providers must be audited at least 1 time in a 2-year period. However, payment backup documentation is to be kept by the provider for 5 years and must be available at any time upon request. Provider is informed in writing of an upcoming audit and must submit copies of the requested backup documentation by the given due date. If the provider uses the short form for attendance verification, then daily sign-in sign-out logs or parent-guardian electronic sign-in sign-out logs must be submitted for post-attendance audit. If the provider uses the long form for attendance verification, then the teacher roster or the teacher's electronic sign-in sign-out logs must be submitted for post-attendance audit. The calculation to determine a provider's payment based on a child absences is referred to as the 80-20 formula. The 80-20 formula ensures that a minimum of 80% of the provider's payment for any enrolled child is for the day the child attends the program. A maximum of 20% of the provider's payment can be for the days the child is absent. Absences prior to the first day of attendance or after the last day of attendance are non-reimbursable. A VPK attendance and payment verification report will be issued at the end of each program year. The purpose of this report is for the provider to verify the annual cumulative attendance and payments made for each child enrolled in the VPK program. The provider verification report is generated per class and program. Reports are generated and sent to providers after program completion, and a report of an acknowledgement letter is attached to the report. The acknowledgement letter is to be returned within the specified time frame. At this point, providers are entitled to request adjustments as necessary. The Coalition is entitled to withhold any future payments to providers that fail to comply with this requirement. The provider verification report is shared with the Department of Education for further provider verification. Make sure you know who your provider relations specialist is. Please check your email frequently, as the new provider portal generates emails with every action. And please call us or email us with any questions.